All right, today, Monday, November 13th. I'm back again with Imran for our Monday morning meeting. How are you doing, Imran?
I'm good, man. How's it
We
going?
got a sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. We got a busy week. We got CPI tomorrow. We got, I guess, Treasury auction tomorrow, actually, which are the most watched events there are. Then there's the CPI. Then we got VIX expiration. We got November OPEX. So for the purpose of this call, we're going to dig into some of our single stock ideas. And then tomorrow we actually have our OPEX live. I believe that's at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you check out that. But first, we want to dive into some single stock ideas that we've been doing every single week. So, Imran, I'd like to start with you and your ideas here. You got a trade here on the left. You're looking at MRK, which is interesting because I haven't told you what names I'm looking at. And on the right here, you're buying puts and Apple. So, you want to walk us through the MRK idea first?
Sure. So Merck's just the only one really that kind of sold off last week and got into kind of buy call territory. You can see the stock's kind of at the bottom end of the range. Vols are relatively low in that name. The whole healthcare sector's kind of been quite beaten up, as has been the guys at Market Era have been talking about that as well. So just thinking there's a bullish divergence. Not quite a bullish divergence yet. The way you get a divergence is when you actually make a spot low and you make a higher low in momentum. So we haven't actually made a low in the stock yet. But if you're preempting that type of condition, you might want to look at some short dated calls in Merck from these levels. That's the idea.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty interesting idea. But before I jump to your second one, I want to jump on this one because I've been trying to up my little game here, showing my different call ideas. And the name that came up on our squeeze scanner, and our squeeze scanner just looks at options positioning. Is gamma at strikes above, et cetera, et cetera. And I actually our scanner came up rather with Pfizer, which, as you mentioned before, it's really the healthcare kind of sector that's been getting beat up. You can see there's Merck. And here's Pfizer. So I kind of laughed. Pfizer is even worse than Merck. Look at this chart. It's just, it's unbelievable. But we see some positioning set up that there's an opportunity for a squeeze. So the idea here is that if the name starts to move, you could get kind of asymmetric upside there. So I thought that was interesting, both because it showed up in our squeeze scanner and then as well as this volatility risk premium scanner. You can see that here, but we can talk about that one in a second. So interesting kind of coincidence there. Now your second trade here is, how dare you try to short one of the Mag 7s, but
yeah, no, I mean, to be honest, the everything that was coming up on the radar last week was saying buy puts across a bunch of names because we were pushing up to those higher levels.
Yeah.
So a lot of these names are still in the same territory. The reason I've highlighted Apple though is just because, the stock's kind of approaching near that 190 area again, where that was the gap down earlier in August. And there's some quite big red candles in that area. So it looks like there's a fair amount of supply potentially there at 190. If you do think that Apple still has got some issues to deal with and it's not just going to fly through to the new highs, then you might want to use this as an opportunity to fade it. I mean, it might be a case of we continue to get passive type inflows into year end and all these names continue rallying. And so actually you might want to time this and kind of just wait before you pull the trigger. But depending on your conviction, we just think that the vol's not overly expensive in Apple. And at some point, this stock can potentially have another leg lower. So out of all the names kind of in mega cap tech, I don't really want to fight against things like Microsoft, Nvidia necessarily, because they've got their whole AI story going. I just wonder whether Apple's a bit of a safer short maybe than some of these other Mag 7s. So that's the reason why it's there.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And I think we'll touch on a little bit tomorrow. This is the Mag 7 equal weighted ETF. You can see this thing looks like it's about to really, it's at a very interesting point here as we hit CPI, VIX-X, OPEX, and touch on the call tomorrow. I think we're due for a little bit of consolidation here with VIX expiration and equity OPEX. I was just making up some words here. Equity OPEX. We're going to talk on that a little bit tomorrow. We talked about our founder's note this morning, but to your point, I mean, Nvidia, that was a candle I think I drew maybe at our last call, maybe 2 calls ago. That thing's breaking out. The other one that's just looking like garbage, we just did a video on this saying that we thought it would maybe tag 200 here, and this, the thing about Tesla in this case is that the equity market has just been going nuts, right? And this thing cannot catch a bid right now, which, I think that 200 price that I thought we were going to tag had the equity market not been up 2% in the last day or two, maybe that would have happened. But they had to remove this name from the Mag Sevens, I think. But Microsoft's just been unbelievable. You don't want to short this one. You just don't want to short the leader, I don't think. And then we have Google, which this seems like it's prime more to go up. So back to your original point on Apple, I can see your point on maybe that being the one that you want to short. But I think this is an interesting window in here just because a lot of names are stretched, a lot of call games built up, and it may be a little bit of time for a pullback. In my view, kind of in almost Thanksgiving, and then we'll see kind of what happens into the end of the year. It's hard to bet against the Santa Claus rally at this exact moment.
I hear that totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So good idea there if you're looking for something to short. I think that Apple one is interesting. One of the two things I want to pick up on quickly. I think we'll touch on maybe crypto tomorrow with our OPEX call, but the other names in our squeeze scanners are crypto names, which have been, just going crazy as Bitcoin popped, right? Bitcoin's up a new leg higher. So I don't, you track crypto space a little bit more than I do, or a lot more than I do. So, as far as squeezes go, these set up to be squeezes, but I don't have a view on Bitcoin. Not that I necessarily have a view on a lot of individual underlying stocks, but I thought that was interesting that all three of these stocks, Coinbase, Mara, and Riot, heavily tied to crypto.
And can I just ask, what is the criteria that gets a name to pop up on the squeeze scanner?
Yeah. So there has to be a certain amount of options activity periods. We have a couple of variables that it has to equate to. Then we look at what implied vol is doing. We don't want to enter into a name where we see that there's too much call skew. And then the second or third one rather is that we want to see gamma and call positions laddered at strikes above. So we try to find names that aren't yet squeezed too much to the upside and or where call activity continues to come in. So that's what shows up on these in the squeeze scanner here.
Okay, so the squeeze scanner is so let me say, so what I hear is there's call open interest building up, yet the stock hasn't really rallied materially yet. So if it was to rally, then that open interest can start to balloon and that can fuel more of a rally. Is that
correct?
Right?
It's not necessarily a view that we don't look at the underlying price of the stock and said it's already moved enough. Because as you know, you can have a name squeeze and you go, this thing is over, and then it keeps going because there's more call positions above. And so it's really that sort of ladder spot. So if you're just to look kind of quickly here, if we go into the equity hub and just look at Coinbase, for example, our models are seeing at its most basic level, you see that there's a lot of calls laddered above here. That was not Coinbase unless it's split. Reverse split.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 100.
So here, if you look here, you can see that there's a lot of open interest, obviously at 100, with Coinbase at 92. So this is a big a number where if you're going to bet on this thing rallying, this 100 number is just kind of blinking red light, obviously. And so, with this down here, you can see that there's a lot of calls, positioned at strikes above. So that's one kind of example that goes into the logic here.
Okay.
And then the other names that came up are on the volatility risk premium side. I made a couple of notes as some of these names have earnings up above, ahead. You're a proponent oftentimes of selling premium, sometimes into names that have earnings. You want to sell at a date before the earnings spike up. So I thought a couple interesting ones here were Avgo, Nvidia, and Snow. Particularly Nvidia and Avgo, they've rallied so much. I think short selling some short dated call spreads in those names could be interesting. Both of those report earnings kind of later in this month, so you want to sell something pre-earnings. I believe Snow is on 12/1, and I think Nvidia is on 11/27. So you have one or two expirations coming up before those earnings come up. And if we do get some equity weakness here, I think those call spreads could pay off pretty well over the next week. And then the other one that I thought was interesting was Target. Target has earnings. This name has not dropped below this level. So I do think it's an interesting time for put spreads, given that we have found a lot of support, but you'd obviously be taking a directional bet on the stock. The other thing that I thought was interesting here was IWMs. IWM had just such a tremendous rally out of the Fed and the squeeze, as you could see last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. And it's given a lot of that back. And so the volatility risk premium we see is high here. If we get any weakness this week on consolidation, I actually like selling put spreads in IWM and or betting on upside into year end. Because if the broader market starts to rally, then I think that this will kind of rebase and shoot back higher. You got any kind of insights here on the small caps?
Yeah, so they had loads of calls getting bought, didn't they? Which fueled that rally.
And there was a lot of puts also that just decimated into this options expiration. So
Yeah, I don't mind it because it's hard to say there's a lot of value to be had in the mega caps, but my God, these small caps, they're the ones. If anything's pricing a recession, it's this sector, right?
yeah,
So if the market's going to say, all right, well, maybe a recession's not coming, maybe we can muddle through, then there might be some chasing for where the value's at.
yeah.
And if there's a bunch of call open interest up there, maybe that fuels a bit of a squeeze, right? Just like what you're looking at some of the single stock names, maybe something similar can happen on Russell.
Yeah, and this in the 175 area is an area that's starting to build up here. I also think that if we get the December year-end rally, that's a flow rally, more so than it is anything that's really based on fundamentals, right? So, unless something shows up as overtly recessionary in the next couple of data points, where I still think we're coming off of the hope, or the markets are still being fueled by the idea that, hey, Powell's going to stop raising rates and rates are calm right now. We're not quite in that recessionary fear. So we are setting up for this idea where it's flows that push the market higher as opposed to necessarily worrying about a recessionary call. So let's call it like the next 6 weeks. We're just getting year-end rally. Then that could really, add to the feel here of IWMs to sort of
I
catch
think,
up.
yeah, I don't disagree. I think selling put spreads to buy calls in IWM might be a good way to play the year-end rally, right?
Yeah. So we'll touch on some more of these topics tomorrow afternoon, but I thought that was interesting as the main name that shows up on the index side. So from my perspective, even though there's earnings here showing up for Target, I think it's been a relatively low. It's hit a low that should stabilize. And then I like the idea of selling put spreads in IBM, but to your point, betting that it could rally, I think particularly the start of December could be very interesting. And then last but not least, you and I both see these healthcare names. I see Pfizer in my squeeze scanner. Merck. I suspect that if one goes up, the other one would probably as well. So those are our two upside ideas. And then you pointed out Apple, which I think of the Mag 7s, if there's some weakness due or one of the weaker names, I'd say outside of Tesla, Apple is definitely the one that I would target there.
Cool.
So with that, we will round this up. Imran, we're going to be back tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, live on YouTube. So please come check that out. Where can people reach you if they want to see more on your scanners or your daily notes?
Sure. So options-insight.com is our website. You can check out what we do. We give a free trial to all our stuff, so you can get our bundle for free, see all our products. We've got crypto weekly, we've got macro weekly, where I go through my portfolio, what I'm doing, what trades I'm putting on, why I'm putting them on, and how I'm restructuring them. And then we've got a daily note that comes out full of trade ideas and market commentary around what we're seeing in cross asset volatility.
Those are great notes. So definitely recommend taking that trial. You can reach us at SpotGamma.com, and we also have free trials of our daily notes and other live trading tools. And then you can also reach me at SpotGamma on Twitter. And please check us out tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, for our OpEx Live.
See you then.